Now, let me just give you a little bit of an intro into Nicola and who she is. So she's worked in the sector of nutrition and lifestyle medicine as a forward-thinking nutritional therapist since 2004. Her main areas of interest are gut-related immunity and hormone issues. And Nicola has been commended for her ability to convey complex nutrition and health messages in a clear and engaging way. Welcome, Nicola, to Hope, Healing and Lipstick.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really, really lovely
I want
to
to sort of
see
start with you with a very brief description of the sort of stress response and how it impacts your digestive system.
Yeah, okay. So we may hear about things like the stress response, and I think it'd be good to just explain what that is. And I know that people that follow you will have an understanding of this already because it's something you talk about a lot. But essentially, it's that fight or flight mechanism that's inbuilt in us to help us survive. If we are constantly under chronic stress, and that can be very low level stuff, it can be things that we're just subjected to on the television. We've had things with our lives changing a lot, and we've had a lot of our ability to communicate and be in social settings curtailed over the last couple of years. And actually there's a degree of stress even coming back into that now, isn't there? Because it is, a degree of social anxiety I'm noticing from all of that. These chronic sort of stresses that we're faced with, they're things that we think about and impact on us and maybe give us a little bit of an anxiety. And actually that ongoing feeling of anxiety triggers this ongoing low level fight or flight. So it may not be a really big experience like this, I must run or fight, but it's this constant almost butterflies in the tummy, or waking in the night and thinking about things and not getting back to sleep very well or whatever. And when this is happening, our body is not really going to be spending as much energy as it needs to on digesting food or our digestive system working well. And that's because the digestive system, it uses so much energy. And so it's a really, really energy intensive system. A huge amount of energy needs to go into making the solutions for us to digest our food. The mechanics of digestion, the movement of the stomach, the movement of the gallbladder, it's really energy intensive. So the body doesn't really want to have that kind of level of energy going into digestion. It's going to want to divert it away so that we're a bit more ready. We're more ready for action. So it's just this sort of insidious impact on digestive health. So that can lead to things like bloating, feeling a little bit of heartburn, discomfort digestively, and it might not present itself initially. So it could come through months later.
So would it be in a kind of a cumulative effect of this sort of low level stress response, and the digestive system is sort of, because energy is drawn away from that because it consumes so much energy, then you have this cumulative effect. Is that have I got that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And so what would be an indication? Would be bloating, sort of digestive issues, sort of maybe upset tummy, and how will it vary from person to person?
It's really difficult to say. A lot of people, that digestive problems can be far-reaching. I think another thing to say is that with the wellbeing industry being the way it is and a lot of information coming at people, there's also a degree of anxiety with, am I okay? Is my digestion okay? People might be listening to this thinking, do I have bloating? The fact is, we're never going to have perfect digestion. Like, there's going to be times in our lives where we feel bloated. There's going to be certain meals we have where we think, oh, that didn't agree with me. You're going to get tummy aches. Sometimes your bowel movements are going to be different. It's more when it's constant every day, something that really starts to impact you, that I would say then it's time to start thinking, is this something that I need to sort of spend a bit of time looking at?
Yeah. And so in terms of this sort of sense of low level stress and this over a long period of time, and I know it's certainly for myself, when I've struggled with anxiety, I found it difficult to eat. I found it difficult to consume enough calories because my stomach is expressing itself in that way. When I feel anxious or uncertain, I would feel it in my tummy. That's where I'll feel it the most. And so how can a person, when they're in that sort of low level stress, or they're feeling anxiety and they feel it in their stomach and they have this sort of grumbling symptoms, how can they start to use food to help calm anxiety? Can they use food to calm anxiety?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because also another thing we often talk about is when people are stressed or anxious, they might overeat or they might use food for
Mm,
comfort. But I think it's really important to understand that, yeah, you can lose your appetite. You can feel like you've constantly got
mm,
butterflies in your tummy or something like that. I think food can be used as in a really good way to ground people, to bring people
interesting.
into a sense of structure.
Mm,
It gives someone an opportunity to focus on something positive. It gives someone an
mm,
opportunity to nurture themselves. So
mm,
if you're not feeling particularly hungry, it's not
mm,
necessarily going to be the right thing to force yourself to eat a great big meal. But
mm,
maybe you can start thinking about, is there something I would fancy and how can I make that look? Would it be a nice bowl of soup, And could I
mm,
maybe buy some fresh parsley to just chop up and put on the top of that, just to make it feel a
mm.
little bit more special? Can I really think about how that's going to smell? Can I really enjoy the flavors of it? Bringing it back to the body as a way of almost, as you might do breath work or you
It's
might
really
do
interesting.
meditation or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, it's interesting because it gives it a sort of almost like a sensory
Yeah,
experience to it and a visual experience to it when you're working with the color and maybe, and the texture. And what's interesting is, when people are uncertain, there's this sort of rumination that can happen. And I often talk about sort of creating activities that will have a beginning, middle, and end that
mm-hmm.
help reacquaint us with something that we can control and something that has a certain outcome. That's
Yeah,
assuming that the recipe is nice when you eat it, but it gives you that kind of sense of doing something for yourself as well that is kind to yourself. And so, what sort of foods would you? I mean, does it really vary the kind of foods that someone would need to gravitate towards that would help ground them? How would that look for an individual, and how would an individual
well,
know what to kind of go for?
okay, so there's two ways to look at it. There's a
Mm,
way that we could eat that could just be kind to the digestive system and
mm,
nurturing to the soul. So that
mm,
might be things that are easy to digest if you don't have a big appetite at the time, and smaller portions. And so that's things like your nice soups and
mm,
stews and things like
mm,
that. In terms of therapeutic foods or ways to use food to just help with the chemistry
mm.
of
Yes.
managing a stress response,
Mm,
foods that contain magnesium are going to be very, very helpful. So
mm,
green leafy vegetables are going to be a really, really useful source of
mm.
magnesium. So
Cavallo Nero, that kind of thing.
anything green, anything
Kale,
that you like that's
spinach.
green, all of it's wonderful.
Okay,
So
okay.
that's a really good thing. Things like sesame, so tahini, making a nice, I don't know, having some nice broccoli with
Oh
some
my God,
tahini dressing or something like
you
that on it.
you did a post a while back, I remember, and I've done it ever since. Excuse me, where you put tahini in porridge in the morning. And I've
Yeah.
never thought of doing that. And now I put tahini in my porridge every morning, and it is so delicious. And is
It's
that a source of protein, the
It's a source of
tahini?
tahini. I love tahini because it's a good source of calcium, which is calming. It's a good source of protein, which is going to give you some raw materials to help with your brain chemistry.
Mm,
It's a good source of omega-3 fatty acids. Sesame seeds are a really good source of omega-3. So tahini
mm.
is used in hummus. So I would always say to somebody, don't go for low-fat hummus, go for the
Oh,
regular hummus,
interesting.
because you've got the
Interesting.
omega-3s from the tahini. It's a brilliant fat
Yes.
to be having.
Yes. Yeah, 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 yeah. And sort of for breakfast, if you were sort of taking it through a day and you were looking for foods that will help ground you and help boost your immunity. And,
Mm.
I remember you talking before about immunity and resilience, because the two are kind of tied in terms of, when we have a stronger immune system, we can feel more
Mm.
resilient. Does that make sense? Did I
Mm.
get that right? I'm
Yeah.
sure I heard you
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about that
yeah.
before.
Yeah, and like a balanced immune system that's going to know when
Yes.
to know when to go in for the charge, but be able to clear up and calm things down and tidy up
Yes.
afterwards. So it's about that
Yes.
whole
Yes.
approach. Well,
Yes,
I
it's the
would say,
switching on and the switching off, isn't it, of that response, being able to
absolutely,
oscillate and
yeah,
knowing how to switch it off. So if you're getting out for breakfast, what would you be looking at doing to sort of help yourself with the immunity part, with the grounding and sort of lowering anxiety? What kind of breakfast
yeah.
would you have?
Well, I would actually start. by having a nice chamomile tea, actually,
Oh,
because
would you?
chamomile is really calming. And actually, there's
Interesting.
some research looking at its antiviral properties and things like that.
Really?
So yeah, a really nice chamomile tea is going to be a really good start to the day. A lot of people think of it in the evening.
Yes.
But
Yeah, totally. I
yeah,
would think of it in the
yeah,
evening.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I am I'm no stranger to anxiety. So, for
Who can
me,
relate on the live to anxiety? Let us know in the comments. Send us some hearts if anyone can relate, or is it just us?
I do like to worry. I will find something to worry about. So, for me, I drink chamomile tea through the day. It's just fabulous for me.
It doesn't make you
Chamomile tea is one of
sleepy.
no. Well, I'm already a little bit sleepy probably, but no, it doesn't make me sleepy. I find it calming. So
Okay, interesting.
it's not sleep promoting necessarily. It's calming, it's soothing, it's
Okay.
anti-inflammatory. It's
Is
really nice
it?
for really nice for digestion. So it's on a par for me with peppermint tea in many ways. So
Yeah.
having a nice chamomile tea is a lovely way to start the day. And again, taking it sounds a bit woo, but honestly, taking in the beautiful golden color, being
Mm,
thankful for it, just really
mm,
connecting,
mm,
feeling it in your
mm,
hands,
mm,
that whole
mm, mm,
connection with the drink and the
mm,
food. Um,
mm. It's like a
and then
mindful approach, isn't it, really?
it's about mindfulness. I'm such a believer
Interesting.
in mindful eating. I really think that
Ah.
we have such a good opportunity to use food to help us to just experience life on a really sort of basic, primal, but
Mm,
almost
mm.
spiritual level. Really,
It's
it's
coming from the earth. It's sort of all connected. It sort of signals growth and the end of something, the beginning of something new. Is that what you mean?
absolutely, yeah, all of that stuff, and just
Yeah.
being thankful. Almost, in a lot of cultures, you'll pray, won't you, before eating?
Yeah.
They're just
Yeah.
bringing that connection in, and
Mm,
rather than it being okay, right, I get up, I have my tea or coffee, I quickly have a piece of toast, out I go.
mm.
There's some, you need to spend some time sort of bringing it into your life, but I'm not talking about adding an extra half hour. I'm still talking about just boiling the kettle and pouring yourself a cup of tea, but it's just
Yes.
making that connection with it.
Yes. 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 Yeah.
As
Yeah.
well, if you've got lots of other things going on in your life that you're worrying about, those little moments of sanctuary can be quite helpful,
Mm,
where you're just concentrating on
mm,
something else. So
mm,
I would say
mm,
starting with a nice peppermint
mm.
tea, and then when my digestive system's woken up enough so I feel like I'm ready to eat, then maybe you could have anything that's going to have a nice amount of protein in it would be a really useful way to start the day.
So is it protein is best at breakfast?
Well, I would say that with every meal you put together, you want to think about, where is my protein?
Yeah.
Where is my fiber? Where are my natural fats? You want to be asking yourself those three questions with every meal that you put
With every
together.
meal.
Yeah,
Interesting. Okay.
because for me, that's the way that I found it's most helpful to get people to feel satisfied from their food and to
Mm,
travel for longer periods of time. And what we're wanting to do,
mm,
especially in an anxiety situation,
mm,
is allow the body to feel settled and secure from eating, and to allow the energy to be absorbed in a steady way into the bloodstream so that it can do the work that it needs to do. So putting in the protein, the fiber, and natural fats, those
mm,
three magic combinations, they work
mm,
very well at slowing down and sort of
mm,
allowing digestion to happen appropriately,
mm, mm. So
rather than,
rather than being in that stress response and eating, woofing stuff down in a hurry.
yeah. So
Yeah.
we're more likely to not overeat as well, if we're really thinking about what we're eating. So protein can be, for me, for breakfast, a typical one would be eggs, but you could also add nuts and seeds into things, couldn't you?
Mm,
You
mm,
could use, I often put ground almonds into oats if I'm making a porridge based breakfast, just to put in a bit more protein, that
mm,
kind of thing.
mm, mm. And so for lunch and for supper, would there be what kind of it would be the same thing, the same three things, the protein, the fats, and there was
Yeah.
the carbohydrate, was it?
Yeah,
That's
or
what you said?
fibre. I think
Fibre.
fibres are more. I find fibre a more rounded way to talk about it, because
Yes.
carbohydrates, the right sorts of carbohydrates, are going to be providing some fibre, and I like
Right.
talking about fibre for the impact on the microbiome. So
Yes. Yes.
that would be anything from grains, whole grains, through to any sort
Yeah.
of vegetables, salad items, fruit, all of those things. Nuts and seeds are fibre.
Yes.
Lentils, pulses, beans, they're all fibre.
Yes.
And if you can get
Yes.
a collection of different things in, you're getting more textures, you're getting more flavour. And that,
Yes.
from a sensory perspective, is helping you to connect with food and feel full, understand about fullness in a different way as well.
Because it often, as we were saying just at the beginning, sometimes when people are worried or there's a sense of a void, they can turn to food to fill that,
Mm.
and sort of mindlessly eat. I mean, I've a couple of friends and I see, and they'll sort of be putting food in, and I can see they'll sort of switch off once their belly is distended, and then they'll go to sleep. And that
Mm.
sort of is sort of a mindless eating, would you say, where it's a lot of processed foods and so forth? And does the body react very differently to processed foods, obviously, to how they do it will with plant-based or a diverse
Yeah,
diet that will feed the microbiome?
I
Have I got
think.
that right?
Yeah, I think that it's all about balance, isn't it? So again,
Mm,
I think it's unrealistic to
mm,
expect to eat a diet that's free of processed food.
mm,
I just think it's unrealistic.
mm, mm,
But if you're consuming lots and lots of processed food, then the issue is that the nutrition, maybe the fibres and other add-in ingredients, additives, aren't
mm.
going to be so helpful. So the fats in processed foods are not so helpful for health, versus the fats that are found in actually vegetables, in fish, in nuts and seeds, and all of those sorts of things.
So,
Um,
Nicola, in terms of processed foods, would there be like a continuum though? Like there's I mean, would you say like Oatly cream cheese is, the version of cream cheese which is made from oats is processed to a degree?
I
Do
would,
you know what I mean? And then at the
yeah,
other end, you've got maybe, Domino's pizza, which is that very processed? You've got like Big Macs or whatever.
yeah,
So
yeah.
would you say there's a continuum of what sort of process that's more that's not as bad as process that is up the other end of the continuum? Can you give a sort of bit of a sort of a guide as to what that would look like?
Oh God, that's quite a hard one. I think it's more to do with looking at ingredients. I think that's probably
Mm,
going to be more
okay.
helpful.
Yes.
So, or let's give another. Well, actually, let's cover something like soya first as an example.
Yes, because
Right?
a lot of the vegan kind of thing. My daughter's vegan, so she seems to eat a lot of these sort of fake meat things. And I
Yeah,
always think I don't know, is it more processed because of it's been created like that, or
yeah,
where's the line kind of thing as to what's
yes,
going to be helpful to us?
yeah. So I have concerns about this fake meat stuff, and especially
Mm,
when it's being sold as being healthy. So something
mm.
that's soya that's been created from like soya isolate. So soya isolate is basically created due to processing, and the processing,
Okay,
yeah, and the
it's fascinating.
processing, yeah, the processing, when you look into it, isn't that great. Okay, so so you end
Okay.
up with a product that you could say actually is a few steps removed from a whole food, actually, versus maybe edamame beans or tofu, which is made
Okay.
from, that's whole soya bean. Yeah.
Right. Right.
So,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
what you're looking for in the ingredients then is you're turning over your vegan product, and you want to see in the ingredients whole soya bean, made from the whole soya bean. If it's made from soya isolates or things that don't make sense to you, you don't
Okay.
recognize, then you would have then there's a bit more of a concern. Does that make sense? So
That makes so much sense. That is so
yeah.
helpful.
So
So
I would
helpful.
say, like corn mince, and you've got soya mince,
Mm,
all of that. My view would be, why don't you just use pui lentils?
mm,
They have a
mm.
similar-ish consistency. They work quite
Yes.
well.
Yes.
Actually, they are a whole food. They
Mm,
contain iron. They have some protein. They've got the
yeah.
fibre.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
a bit
sometimes
like,
I'll do mushrooms and blend them, blitz them, to make like the equivalent of a mince and put it in with lentils, and it's a similar consistency, but I've just blitzed them in the Magimix. Do you know what I mean? To give that.
And then the lentils are giving you that bit of protein, you know, because
Yes.
it's about so that for me would be a much richer option, you know, in terms of nutrition, than like a soya mince or something like that.
Yeah. Someone's just wrote a question earlier, actually, before I forget. And they were asking about, let me just see, something to do with advice on post-COVID tiredness and headaches. What, any sort of nutritional advice on that, Nicola?
Well, oh gosh, there's lots. It's really difficult.
That's another line.
It's really difficult without knowing the case or any other information.
Yes.
I would say that what is interesting is there's a study being published by University of Bedfordshire looking at certain strains of probiotics to support both acute and long-term COVID symptoms. What was demonstrated there was, especially when people had digestive problems to begin with, big improvements in how they felt, including improvements in energy, including reduction of cough. So,
wow.
But also looking at maybe, you know, just getting the good foods into the diet, getting good sleep, managing the nervous system. And I think that what I'm finding with COVID is, to a certain extent, the passage of time is important, but also really taking the care to really look at how you're living. So say someone's had COVID and they're feeling really fatigued since, I suppose I would want to know, you know, what's going on with your periods and your hormones and how you're feeling from that perspective. How's your digestion feeling? How are you sleeping? What's your stress levels like? And so because with nutrition, you're looking at the whole body. So it's not that there's this one thing. This one thing is going to help you.
Holistic, isn't it? It's the whole. Now, I'm just always conscious that for people that are eating on a budget, like they're, you know, because I think economically some people might be quite hit, and as things progress, and I'm very fortunate. My partner sometimes buys Mindful Chef, which is lovely. I don't get it, but I often think, what can we do? What would be sort of a really good foods to go for if we're on a budget? Like would be lentils. You'd be what would be the, you know, the sort of the real basics that you could really nourish your body with, ground it, get the right fats, fiber, and protein. What would you suggest?
So there's a few things to think about here. So let's get onto the foods in a second. The first thing to say is, if you're on a budget, it's also about shopping sensibly to avoid waste and making some savage. So for example, I would spend quite a lot of money on a chicken, more than someone else would spend on a chicken, right? But what I would do with that chicken is I would use every single bit of it. There would be nothing wasted from it, you know, and actually it's going to be cheaper than buying some chicken breasts. And then I would use the bones to make a stock, you know, so it's that kind of as your grandmother would have done. So that's number one, thinking about. So in that case, you start thinking, should I buy frozen, you know, would frozen vegetables be sensible? Because there's less likelihood of them spoiling in the fridge, or I don't eat them. Frozen fruit, all of that. So we've got that. I would say that, so when it comes to meat, which tends to be more expensive, just it's about maybe buying one or two things to eat in the week and that are good quality and making them last. And you can do things like, you know, like with your lentils, again, you could make a really big bolognese with lentils and mince if you wanted to, that you could then use as for different, a chili one night, bolognese the next night, that kind of thing. Foods like lentils and quinoa and all of these foods, they are really good because they're long life. They store in the cupboard. They don't, you know, they are really good for bumping things up, making things filling, making other things go further.
That's really interesting, actually, about the chicken thing. Important to buy organic meat, or does it not matter as much? If you're going to invest in, say, something like a chicken, what would you do?
Okay, I'll tell you what I do. I buy an organic chicken from Tesco's.
Tesco's?
Yeah.
What's with Tesco's?
Well, I shop at Tesco's. I get my
I thought you were
club
going to tell me
card.
something some secret about Tesco's.
No, I'm just a normal person. So I've got my Tesco's club card. It's down the road.
Okay.
It's cheaper than Waitrose, and I've downgraded from Waitrose. And I'll go to Waitrose for my nice items.
Yeah, for your treats.
Yeah. So what Tesco's for me does a really nice big organic chicken that's more expensive than the other chickens, but I feel happier buying that one.
Right. Yeah.
I used to go to a local butcher to get a lovely chicken, but they closed down. So, so I would say where you can, go for the best quality that you can afford. That's what I would say. So it is maybe, and I would say, meats like lamb, lamb generally is quite good quality meat because lamb has to be grazed on pastures. So it's therefore it's quite good quality fats in the meat versus cattle, which are often farmed more intensively and will be given lots of grain. That will impact the quality of the fats in the meat that you consume.
It's just all this stuff I just wouldn't have sort of, unless you kind of invest some time looking at it or talking to people like you, which I'm very delighted that you agreed to speak to us. But you see, that sort of information is so good to know, for people who are meat eaters. I mean, I eat a bit of chicken, a bit of fish, but I don't actually eat red meat. But someone just saying here, I still make chips from potato peel, taught by my grandmother. There you go, making no food waste. Isn't that a great idea?
Lovely.
Let us know how you do it.
Maybe. That's right. Do you know what we've just got, which is a bit of a gimmicky thing that I was pressured. There was a campaign in my house for this item. It's an air fryer.
Oh my God, we got one as well.
Well, I'm just thinking those potato peelings could go in an air fryer and make some really nice.
Yes, they could go in an air fryer. Yeah.
And you've got the fibre. That's fibre.
We love that. Anyone else got any recipes they want to type in the chat? Love it. Nicola, you've been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. Just a quick scroll. Take the peel, toss in oil and salt, pepper and bake. Wonderful. Yeah, you could definitely do that in the air fryer as well with a tiny bit of oil on them. I love that idea. That's fantastic. Thank you for that. Love it. I love a community joining in and sharing ideas. One last question though. What does hope mean to you?
What does hope mean to me? Hope means... Think about this before.
It's interesting.
What does hope mean to you? Tell me that.
To me, it means faith, basically. It means, we don't need to necessarily know what's going to happen in the future. It's faith that things will be all right. It's faith in one's own ability, in that things will turn out okay, and whatever happens, you'll kind of adapt. And cope with it. It's that sort of, you can't touch hope, you can't see it, but it's something you can sort of get a sense of, you can cultivate a sense of by focusing in the right places, by remembering your resources and skills, of getting your needs met in the environment, all that kind of thing. And what would healing mean to you? Lots of good food.
Healing for me is more about just, I think one thing, it's acceptance. And it is gratitude.
Yeah, lovely.
I think that in enjoying food in every sense, enjoying all food in every sense. I think that in the wellbeing industry, there is a lot of curated perfectionism that is troublesome. And there's also a perceived panacea of where you're going to get to with your health that is, abundant energy, fabulous sleep, complete, svelte gut, digestive system, no bloating, everything, really good mood all the time. I think the bottom line is that isn't reality. So it's just acceptance of, I'm going to step forward every day to do what I can to take ownership of my health and well-being. And I'm going to be grateful for the body I have. I'm going to accept I'm going to accept what I can do. I'm going to accept what I can't do. It doesn't mean that I can't do it forever. So for me, that is what it is, really.
I love that acceptance. Absolutely brilliant. And lipstick being the metaphor for play. For anyone that's on here, it's because the title of these lives are Hope Healing Lipstick. So I ask every guest about what that means to them. So what do you do for play?
What do I do for play? Well, I walk my dog, and I've recently stopped taking my phone on dog walks. I used to listen to podcasts and things. Now I walk my dog and I watch my dog being happy.
Oh,
And
I
that
love
is,
that.
watching my dog being happy is very, very good for my soul.
Yes.
I
Yes.
sort of go to the gym, and it's not about killing myself. It's about being happy that I'm moving and that I've made it there. You know, I'm winning at life just to have walked through the door. I am winning.
Yes.
And it's also spending time with my family, and things like just watching my children play football or basketball, or it's nothing that's really rocking my world. It's just those simple, small things.
It's just brilliant though, isn't it? Because they're accessible. And in the
Yeah,
world where we're sold big transformations the whole time and do more, be more, you know, the older I get, the more I think it's really those very, I know it sounds simple things that are accessible that I can do each day, like you're saying, you know, connecting with people, being outside, looking at, I mean, I worked out today halfway through the day doing in the sunshine. I thought, God, how
nice.
fantastic. And the appreciation of being able to move in that way.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Nicola. I've absolutely asked you all the questions that I have, and
Thank
you've been
you.
very patient with me. Thank you
No,
so
it's
much
been
for your
great.
time
I
and
really
um,
appreciate
and
it.
for sharing. There's lots of hearts, and thank you all of you that have come on and joined this live. There's always think there's lots of places you can be, but I hope you found some of the information you got here tonight helpful and that you'll use it moving forward.
Thank you, Liz.